All right, shall we begin? Okay. Welcome to my workshop. Actually, this is the penultimate IELTS workshop this semester. This is Dr. Chris Kwan. I graduated from Hong Kong last year, and I did my PhD in applied linguistics. Today, we'll focus more on IELTS speaking. Um, As you can see from the schedule here, we already had a number of workshops on other areas of IELTS like listening, reading, and writing. So next week we will have the last workshop on applying grammar into IELTS exam. So if you have missed the previous workshops, don't worry. You can always go to the YouTube channel of the Language Center to watch the recordings of the workshops. So, today's workshop will be focusing on speaking. I hope that by the end of this workshop, you could achieve two intended learning outcomes. Number one, I would like you to identify some key areas of competency that will help you get a high score in IELTS speaking. I will go through the areas later in my later slides. And apart from the identification of the four areas of competency, today I hope that you can practice producing fluent and coherent answers to examiners' questions during the IELTS exam. I will introduce some skills and techniques that you can use, that you can apply in your speaking exam, so that you can talk at length during the speaking exam. So here comes the workshop outline. We'll do a warm-up activity first, and then after the warm-up or ice-breaking activity, I will introduce the IELTS speaking exam a bit, and then we'll go through the exam, the flow of the exam. Going through each session one by one. And I will also remind you of some speaking skills that you may need to pay attention to during the speaking test. And then I will wrap up the workshop by giving you some personal tips based on my test taking experience. Okay, we have one Zoomer today. Yes. Today we'll have some speaking activity. I think for people who are attending online, maybe you can use your mobile to record your speech so that you can listen to your recording later and use the checklist. I think it's on the last page of your handout. You can use the checklist to self-evaluate your speaking performance. But for face to face, for people attending face to face, you can get my feedback immediately. Okay, let's just do an exciting warm-up activity. So, what are you going to do? Imagine you are one of the student ambassadors of this university, right? So you are a student ambassador. This Saturday is your university's information day, right? So information day, and then as a student ambassador, you are invited to speak to the visitors like me, right? In a student sharing session on one of the two topics for just 1 minute. So the job is basically very simple to talk to the visitors about one thing. And I'm going to show you the topic in a minute. Of course, before speaking to the visit, you will have um, you will have 1 minute to prepare some notes so that you can talk to your visitors with enough content. So here are the topics. you are invited to talk about one of these. Either describe one thing that you like about this university, or you describe one place that visitors must go and visit. Okay, so these are the two topics, and you choose one of them. Okay, may I give you 1 minute to prepare for what to say? Yes. Okay, so could you sit with the partner next to you so that you can well so that you can practice um your mini sharing with your partner. Okay. I give you 1 minute and you can imagine your peer or the one sitting next to you is a visitor. So you take turns to share one of these topics. Okay. So altogether, I will give you maybe 3 minutes to do this. Okay. So let's do the warm up activity now. All right. So have you finished your sharing? Okay. Um, the participants here, I mean the face-to-face students here, shared with me some interesting things about our university. Some of them said we can the research complex building is a place that is worth visiting because we can enjoy the sea view, and also we can go to Pacific Coffee to grab a cup of coffee or some other kinds of drink. I think these are all interesting ideas. And if you can provide such interesting ideas in your IELTS exam, that can boost your confidence to speak at length, and this can increase your chance of getting a good score in the IELTS exam. All right. So, although this is just an ice-breaking warm-up activity, I hope it can. I hope this activity can help you develop some sort of um well habit of speaking in English, no matter to no well I mean no matter to visitors or to other people, right? So try to get a habit or develop a habit of speaking in English to your classmates or to or even to your teachers. This can help. Well, if you can develop a habit of speaking in English, and this can help you practice your fluency in speaking in English. So, after the ice-breaking activity, let me just move on to talk a bit about the IELTS speaking exam. Okay, and here's the test flow. For the first, there are 3 sessions in total. In part one, um, you will be asked a number of questions. It's actually kind of an introduction and general questions, meaning that the examiner will ask you a number of questions, around 8 to or sometimes 12, it depends. And the questions will be about yourself, can be yourself, your family, your hobbies, your interests, your work, or your current education. The range of topics to be covered in part one can be very wide. WIDE, right? Can be can be very broad. So it would be good to before the exam, it would be good to try to brainstorm some ideas that you can talk to others about, that you can tell others about yourself, so that you can if you have these ideas ready, then you can be more prepared to talk to your examiners about yourself or things or people around you. So this is part one. In part two, it is actually a long turn, right? Meaning that sorry, you'll be told to um, talk about a given topic for 1 to 2 minutes. Um, One thing that is special in the long term is that you will have time to prepare. You will have 1 minute to prepare for what you would like to tell the examiners. This is unlike unlike the previous part, the introduction and general questions session, you won't have time to prepare, and you have to. And when the examiner is asking you a question, you have to give an answer immediately, right? But for long term, you will have 1 minute to prepare for a talk for 1 to 2 minutes. The examiner will give you the topic, and again, you can't choose what you would like to talk. You have to talk about the topic given by the examiner, so you don't have choice. Okay. And after giving your 1 or 2 minute talk, you will be asked 1 to 2 rounding of questions about the topic. Actually, they are sort of like a follow-up question about your mini talk. So that's why well that's why a few minutes ago we had a warm-up activity, and that activity is actually modeling on this long-term session. You will be given a topic to talk for 1 to 2 minutes, and then you will be asked 1 to 2 questions. And the last part of the test is actually called analytical discussion. Well, don't be misled by the name discussion. It's actually not a genuine discussion, but again, it's sort of like question and answer session. The examiner will ask you a number of questions, but this time, unlike part one, um, the questions in part three um, at a more advanced level, meaning that you have to show your higher order thinking skills. So that's why this session is called analytical. Analytical. We will have. I will show you some examples of the kinds of questions that will be covered in the analytical discussion later. But one thing that we can make sure that actually parts 2 and 3 are thematically related. That is, they are on the same topic. So, for example, in part 2, in the long term, if we are told to share something like describe a movie that you watched last week, then it is likely that during part 3 of the exam, you will be told to talk about movies or filming or the filming industry. So part 2 and part 3 are thematically related. So altogether, how long will the test be? Approximately 15 minutes, I would say. So each part will be about 4 to 5 minutes. So it won't be a very long speaking test. It will be around 15 minutes. But I would say I would say actually for people who are not good at speaking, maybe these 15 minutes will be quite quite you know quite a hard time for them because yeah one of the most difficult things of the speaking exam is that everything that you have spoken would be considered by the examiner. Okay, you can't unlike the writing exam. Well, in the writing exam, if you make a mistake, you still have time to correct yourself. And before you hand in your script. But for the speaking exam, it's more spontaneous. Like the examiner, well, every action or every word that you spoke will be seen or will be heard by the examiner. So it can be quite nervous, but don't worry. The examiner is not going to be very, uh, you know, um, very scary. They will try to they are trying to create a more relaxing environment for you to talk at length, right? So they will be asking you questions to encourage you to speak at length so that they can get a good sample of your speaking proficiency. So this is basically the flow of the test. Um, I'm showing you the assessment criteria that examiners will use to grade your speaking performance. And as the title of today's workshop suggests, we will focus more on fluency and coherence today. I will show you some skills that you can apply to help you talk at length, right? It's not good in the speaking in the IELTS speaking exam to give just like a one sentence response. So it would be good to develop or to give an extended answer to the examiner's question. I will show you how in a minute. If we have time today, I I've actually prepared for some slides or some pieces of information for the other three areas of the assessment criteria, like the use of vocabulary, the use of grammar, and your pronunciation. Um, I will focus on fluency and coherence first, and if we have time, uh, and I will try to leave time to cover these three parts as well in today's workshop. All right, so let me move on to talk about the domain fluency and coherence. What does it mean by fluency and coherence? If you want to get a high score in this domain, and you need to try to do two things. Number one, as I've repeated a number of times, you need to speak at length, right? That means you don't just give me or give the examiner a one sentence answer. That's not enough. Okay, try to give more ideas to enrich your answer. Okay, but at the same time, sometimes when we are speaking for a long time, we can easily get sidetracked, right? So it is important to know how we can organize ideas in a logical manner using appropriate signposting. If you have attended my previous writing workshops, actually, I mentioned the concept of signposting. Signposting means we need to use words like firstly, secondly. The first reason is that, another reason is that these are signposting devices that we can use to tell the reader, sorry, tell in this speaking context, tell the listener, tell the examiner about what we are trying to convey. So speak at length, organize ideas logically using signposting. Another area that you need to try to avoid would be the appearance of long pauses. Right. Sometimes we do have to pause. We do have to pause, but it's just that we don't pause for such a long time that the examiner will feel, is this candidate lacking confidence in speaking? So we need to pause. We do have to pause, but we don't have long pauses. We don't want to repeat ourselves very often, right? So try to avoid long pauses and repetition. How can we speak fluently and at the same time confidently in front of our examiners? I'm going to show you a framework that you can apply. Actually, I learned this framework from this website, and you can browse the website after the workshop. It's an acronym actually called AREA, right? What does it mean by area? Can you make a guess? What does A stand for? And R, E, and A. If you have a look at the handout, you may get some ideas. Or you can have a look at the slides here. Okay, suppose you are given a question. What effects can watching television have on children? So imagine this is the response, right? You can see the response has been highlighted in different colors. So, okay, have a look at the pink one. Okay, I suppose watching a lot of TV can be harmful to kids. So, what is the function of this sentence? Sorry? Introduce, okay, to introduce your maybe your opinion, right? To express your opinion, or let me put it this way, to answer directly to the question, to the examiner's question. So this is, well, the first letter of area means answer, right? Give a direct answer. Okay, yes or no. Or in this case, it's actually a WH question. What effect, right? What? So it would be good if you could give a direct answer to the examiner's question first. And then what about the function of this yellow part? Okay. If you attended my writing workshop, and if you remember the content of my writing workshop, actually I told you that in a body paragraph, after a topic sentence, we need to have elaborations and examples, right? But here in this context, right, well, you can still call it elaboration, but here under the area framework, R stands for reason. Reason or supporting details that can elaborate, that you can use to elaborate on your answer, right? So the reason followed by the answer, right? Answer, reason. And what about this part in light blue? For instance, oh, it's very obvious, right? Because you can see there for instance, right? So it's the example. What about the last sentence? It's a bit tricky. On the other hand, I know there are a lot of useful educational shows on TV as well, so it's not all bad. So what's the function of this sentence? This is actually what we mean by alternative. Um, if you remember in the writing workshop, actually I also mentioned something like considering the opposing views, right? Even though if you agree with something, you can also show your ability to consider why some people may disagree with the statement. So here, the word alternative means you consider you consider the opposing view, right? So the term area actually stands for answer, reason, example, and alternative. Note that actually, I'm not asking you to do to make sure your answer must include answer, reason, example, alternative, right? I don't mean that. Don't get me wrong. I'm just suggesting that you may try to incorporate. You try to explain your answer instead of giving just one sentence answers. You need to explain your answer with a reason, and also it would be good to give some example. For the part alternative, it depends. If you think you have the ability or to do like in writing, what we call a rebuttal, right? Then you can include a sentence that shows that you have considered the opposing view. If you are not confident in doing this part, then it will be good to focus on these two. What I'm suggesting is that you don't have to make sure your every of your I mean each of your answers must include an answer, reason, example, alternative. I'm just suggesting a framework that you may apply in order to enrich your sentence, also enrich your answers instead of just giving a one sentence answer. The key point here is that it would be good to support your answer with sufficient details like reasons and examples. So let me give you one more example. Imagine you are given this question: have the types of transport people use changed much over the last few decades? So this time there is no alternative, but you can see the answer, reason, and example only. So this is what I mean by developing your responses. Sometimes because the examiners are here to listen to your English so they can get a good sample of your spoken English in order to grade your English. Then it would be good if you could speak for a longer period of time um, so that you can give a good sample to the sample of your English to the examiner. But in order to speak for a longer period of time, it would be good to consider this area framework. And the key point of this framework is to develop your response by giving sufficient reasons and one example, if possible. So this time, have a look at this. I'm going to show you two responses. They are on the same topic. What are they are in response to the same question. What are the advantages of internet shopping? If you have a look at the response on the left, actually this is quite disorganized in the sense that there is no there is no no connection between the sentences. But if you apply the framework, the area framework, you can produce a more well organized response. Look at this. If you look at the response on the right, so this time the response has the answer and then reason and then examples. So it is quite well organized, but that's not enough. We also need some phrases or some expressions to connect different ideas in your spoken response. How can we do that? Well, I guess there are a lot of advantages. Okay, if you have a look at the sentence here, so this sentence can actually be deleted, right, without affecting the clarity of your response. And this sentence is actually unrelated to the question, right? So why do we have to? Why can we? Well, or let me put it this way: Is it okay? Is it fine to have such a sentence like, I guess there are a lot of advantages? Is it okay to have such a sentence? I think it depends, right? Sometimes one of the as I've said at the beginning of the workshop, one of the reasons why speaking test can be so difficult is that you have to answer the examiner questions immediately, right? But sometimes that's difficult because some people do need some thinking time to think about how to answer, right? Sometimes the examiner's questions can be quite abstract, or the, or they may be asking questions that require you to analyze something first before you present your opinions to them. And this sentence is actually an example of what I've written here. Buying time phrase. You buy time. Okay, by uttering this sentence, you are giving yourself some, although it's just like a few seconds, some a bit of time to think ahead before you express your opinion, right? And in the speaking exam, in the IELTS speaking exam, it is legitimate for candidates to do this, right? This is actually kind of showing your ability, okay, to to show your examiners that you do need a bit of time to think about the response, right? And doing this, using a buying time phrase is actually better than uh this kind of filler, what we call fillers, like if you imagine if you do this quite a lot. I think if you do this quite a lot, this can affect your fluency, and definitely you won't get a high score in the domain fluency and coherence, right? So instead of doing doing a lot of time or too frequently, I mean it's natural for us to hesitate to give to use these fillers. It's very natural in spoken English, but in the in the context of IELTS speaking, maybe it would be good idea to reduce the amount of this kind of hesitation of fillers. We don't do this too often, and we can use the buying time phrase as another way to get some time to think about how we can structure our responses before we really answer the question. So apart from buying time phrase, I would like to remind you of the words firstly, secondly. These are sequencing words that we can use to signpost. Remember the word I talk about, the signposting, right? These are signposting words that we can use to tell the examiners the flow of um, our mini talk. Oh, sorry. Yes. And for example, right? We use the word for example, or sometimes for instance, or a case in point is that blah 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 to remind the examiners that we are going to give. I'm going to give an example to illustrate what I said. Are there other expressions that we can use besides firstly, secondly, and for example? Definitely, there are a lot. If you have a look at this slide, it's on your handout as well. We can have some phrases for buying time. You can if an examiner asks you a question that you don't think you have sufficient content to talk about, well, you can say, that's a difficult question, or that's an interesting question. Well, you can use this sentences like this to get some time to think about how to respond to the examiner without using a lot of hesitations of fillers, right? So these are some examples of buying time. That's a difficult or an interesting question. Let me think. Well, I haven't thought about that before, but I think internet shopping does have a lot of advantages. But blah 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 blah. Okay, these phrases are very useful for you to get some time before you speak, right? So again, if you need to signal the flow of your ideas in your answer. Apart from firstly, secondly, you can use phrases like the first point I would like to make is the first reason is that another reason is that blah 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 blah. Okay. So you can refer to the expressions here on on the slide and try to vary the use of these signposting devices so that you can demonstrate a wider range of signposting devices to your examiners. So far, I've talked about how we can get a good score in terms of fluency and coherence, right? Well, basically two things. Number one, develop an extended response, like applying the area framework. And number two, uh, try to avoid hesitations of fillers and use buying time phrases or some um, phrases that can help you structure your response more logically. So let me move on to the next part of today's workshop. That is, we are going to have a look at each of the three parts of the speaking exam. And hopefully after going through the flow of going through each session of the speaking test, I will have time to go through the other three areas of assessment with you. So part one would be introduction and general questions. As I have said before, it's kind of like a question answer session, and you'll be asked a number of questions on a range of topics. Usually, I mean the topics will be around 2 to 3. It depends. It depends on the actual time. Around 2 to 3 topics like hobbies, studies, employment, etc. Right, a range of topics will be covered. Um, if you want to prepare some ideas or some vocabulary that can help you answer questions about yourself or uh, share with your examiners about things or people around you, it may be good to think about these 3 areas. Like hometown, like questions like where do you live? Can you describe your home a bit, right? Something personal about yourself, right? Apart from home questions on hometown, sometimes you'll be asked questions about studies or employment. If you're a student, maybe you will be asked some questions like can you describe your school or your university a bit? Which subject do you like? Don't worry about the difficulty of the questions. The questions will be quite personal, and there is no right answer. There is no right or wrong answer, right? The purpose of this part is to get you to speak in English, right? About yourself, and it's easier to talk about yourself, right? And apart from hometown studies or employment, there may be questions about hobbies, interests, and pastimes, like what you like or what you do usually with your friends. So if you have a look at the right of the slide, you can see some sample questions, right? Okay, yes. Let us do the first activity. I'm going to show you a video that shows how a candidate answers some question in the part 1 of the exam. Well, it's an authentic IELTS test, and the candidate actually scored a 7.5 in speaking. So the performance is quite good, right? I would like you to pay attention to how the candidate answers the question. I have a task for you. I would like you to think about these 2 questions. How many how many questions are asked, and typically how long is each answer? And in particular, focus on the question, do you like cooking? There will be one question like, do you like cooking? Right? If you hear this question in the video, I hope you can pay attention to this because we will analyze the response to this question. Do you like cooking? Okay, so give me a few seconds, so that I can play the video for you. Let me see, new share, and then yes.
Let's talk about what you do. Do you work or are you a student?
Yes, I am both actually. I work part-time as well as a student.
What job do you do?
I'm an payroll controller. I control the payroll in a property management company.
Do you meet interesting people in your job?
Um, Not many, but yes, sometimes I have to visit the banks and the sites, so yes, I do.
How long have you been doing this sort of work?
For a year and a half now.
Let's go on to talk about friends now. Are your friends mostly your age or different ages?
No, many different ages
Why?
where it ranges. It's basically because I am not from this place. I'm from back Nepal, and when I came here, I met people from my country as well as people from different places at work and at different places. So they're all over the place.
Do you usually see your friends during the week or at weekends?
It depends. I see them all over the week, I think. Work friends at work, after work drinks and things like that. So yeah, all throughout the week.
Okay. The last time you saw your friends, what did you do together?
We went out for a movie last Saturday. Um, there was this interesting movie that we heard was out on due date, so we all decided to go for it, and it was pretty nice.
In what ways are your friends important to you?
Oh, they are very important to me because I hate to be lonely. I need to talk to someone every now and then because I can't just sit, not to say do nothing, but I need someone to confront and talk to. So I give them a great importance in my life.
I'd like to move on to talk about food and cooking now. What kind of food do you like to eat?
I like Asian food quite a lot because it's because of its taste, its variety, and things like that.
What kind of new food would you like to try?
Um, that would be French, uh, pure French food, I would say.
Why?
I've heard a lot about it, but because of its taste, its originality. So, but I haven't got a chance to have the original French food as yet. So yeah, I would like to try that.
Do you like cooking?
No, that's not just my cup of tea, not at all.
Why not?
I don't know. I've been here for 3 years now, and I am a single. I live alone with my friends, but it just does not come into me. Even when I enter the kitchen, I think I go grocery shopping and I do things, but once I enter the kitchen, I just end up making some noodles and just 2 minute food, and that's it. I end up having that. But I never got into cooking. And one interesting thing, I don't know the taste of salt. So I don't know. If I cook and I call my friends over, it would be a disaster.
What was the last meal you cooked?
uh, that was tough. Just noodles again. I would say no pasta. 2 minutes food again.
So think about the video again. Do you think the answers are long? Not really. Okay. Actually, the answers are. You can. I think you can feel that the answers are not quite long, and some of the answers are just a few sentences long. Okay. How many questions are asked? Have you done the counting? 12. Actually, it's 12. Good. Yes, good that you know, okay, a total of 12 questions were asked, right? So that means you really paid attention to the video. Okay, I think that's a good, I think that's good. That's good. Okay, you can see the examiner asked a number of 12 questions. Well, that's because as you can see from the video, the candidate actually hasn't given long answers, right? Well, it depends. If you're given long answers to each question, I mean the total number of questions will be reduced because the examiner will have to will keep the time limit. You stick to 4 to 5 minutes for part one. I remember when I took the IELTS speaking test, actually I gave at times I gave long answers, and the examiner stopped me. By saying things like okay, thank you, and then the examiner moved on to ask me another question. Uh, in the end, my score was okay. I wouldn't tell you I wouldn't tell you about my score, but it was okay. Well, it was okay. But at least what I mean is try to speak at length by avoiding uh giving to two sentence answers, right? Um, try to develop or back up your responses with some what the area framework has stated, reasons and examples. But this is quite important, especially for part 3 of the exam, which is about analytical discussion, right? So I think the longest answer would be the one addressing this question. Do you like cooking? That's why I asked you to pay attention to the answer to this question. So you can see, no, that's not just my cup of tea. Actually, in the examiner's report comments, and the examiner comment, or I mean, the man you saw, right, commented that it should be, that's not, uh, that's not my cup of tea. Actually, there is a problem with word order here, right? That's not my cup of tea would be good. Uh, that means the candidate doesn't like cooking. He answers the question directly. Okay, this is the direct answer, and then actually you can the reasons are provided in the utterances highlighted in yellow here. But if you look at the word if you look at the sentences underlined here, actually they are not very. They are not very relevant to the question. Do you like cooking? But maybe I would say these few sentences can be again some sort of can be I mean they are serving some buying time functions. Um, you can see the candidate is actually getting some time to think about how to formulate his responses here, right? I wouldn't say these sentences are totally unrelated to the question, but not really closely relevant because they are not answering the question, do you like cooking? Maybe the candidate is I think the candidate, well, to me, the candidate is hesitating, and he's also wondering uh, why he doesn't like cooking, despite a number of circumstances. So the key point here is try to develop your responses by giving sufficient reasons or or some explanations about about I mean, of course, the explanation is to be relevant, but some details about yourselves. Yes. So let's just do another activity. On your handout, slides 12 and 13, you will see two sets of questions, right? I would like you to work in pairs again and conduct 2 rounds of question and answer practices using the questions on slides 12 and 13. Right. We will do 2 rounds together. Well, in each round, one of the students, well, in each pair, one of the students would be a candidate, and the other student, the examiner. The examiner would need to ask the candidate questions using the lists of questions on slides 12 and 13, right? And the candidates should try to apply the area framework that I've introduced to you in order to answer the questions immediately, right? So in other words, we'll have a mini practice on part 1 of the IELTS test. I mean the speaking test, sorry. So let's just do part, I will give you like maybe 2 minutes to do round 1 first, and then another 2 minutes for round 2. Okay, so I will leave the time to you. So welcome back. And let me talk about part 2 of the exam now. Okay, when part 2 begins, you'll be given a task card. Okay, and some stationery. Well, basically a pencil and a piece of paper for you to make notes, right? On the card, you will be given, you will see the topic that you need to talk about, and you'll be given 1 minute to prepare for it. And after that, you will have a 2-minute talk. You will be told to speak for 1 to 2 minutes, but it will be good to speak to make the most of the 2 minutes in order to give your examiners a good impression about your speaking proficiency, right? So, as I've said, you'll be asked 1 or two rounding of questions about the stuff that you have presented. So here comes a sample question. Describe something you own which is very important to you, and on the sample, you can see some hints have been given. So, oh, sorry. Some hints have been given, where you got it from, how long you have had it, what you used it for, and explain why it is important to you. And I think it would be a good practice to cover all these points so that you can make sure that you have enough time and you have enough time to talk about the things which is very important to you, and you have sufficient ideas to present fluency to your examiner. So let me show you a sample. Actually, this I'm going to show you an audio this time. And it is actually a response, an authentic candidate's response to this question. So bear with me for just a few seconds.
All right. Remember, you have 1 to 2 minutes for this, so don't worry if I stop you. I'll tell you when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
Yes. One of the most important things I have is my piano, because I like playing the piano. I got it from my parents to my 12th birthday, so I have it for about 9 years. And the reason why it is so important for me is that I can go into another world when I'm playing piano. I can forget what's around me and I can forget my problems, and this is sometimes quite good for a few minutes, or I can play to relax, or just, yes, to relax and to think of something completely different.
Thank you. Would it be
Okay, so could you tell me how you feel about the candidate's performance in general? Do you have anything to comment on the candidate's performance?
Doing something like
Oh, mhm, 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 mhm. Okay, thank you. I think you've pointed out one very good thing about the candidate performance is that the candidate doesn't seem to be very confident about what about his long term, right? Because sometimes he might have to think for a long time before he speaks again. So let me see. So unfortunately, I got it from I got the video from the IELTS official IELTS website, and this time the website doesn't tell which band actually the candidate has got. So so I don't have such information about the grade and all the band and also the examiner comment. But maybe as you can tell from the candidate performance that it some of the ideas here could actually be further elaborated so that he could feel he could feel the time needed for the for his mini talk, and he could have produced a richer response to the to the to the task. So again, one one piece of advice that I would like to give is to apply the area framework that I've introduced to you. Maybe for some, well, in some places, actually, he could have given more elaborations on why the piano actually he mentioned piano, right? Why the piano uh is important to him other than just for relaxation, right? In what ways he could he could relax through playing the piano. He could have talked a bit more about that so that he could have made the best use of the 2 minutes. So unfortunately, I don't have enough time for today's workshop to cover to practice long term. But maybe one thing that I would suggest you doing after the workshop is to find a partner, and then you use this question as an as a mock practice in order to practice with your partner how you can give a mini talk on this topic for 1 to 2 minutes. So my tip for success here is to try to give a full answer, right? What do I mean by full answer? An answer that is supported by evidence or supported by reason and examples. So, because of the time limit, let me just move on to part 3, analytical discussion. As I said at the beginning of the workshop, it's not a genuine discussion. Okay, don't be misled by the name. Okay, by the name. It's analytic. This session is called analytical discussion, but it's not discussion actually. Well, a discussion is by nature. I mean, uh, uh, some exchange of ideas between two people. But in the context of IELTS speaking, in this part, the examiner will only ask you questions, right? The examiner will only ask you questions, but the questions, well, unlike part 1 of the exam, will be at a more advanced level. As I've said, higher order thinking will be required. I will show you some sample questions for you to practice in a minute. And as I've said at the beginning of the workshop, the theme of the questions will be related to part 2, to what you have said in the long term. So these are some sample questions taken from the IELTS official practice materials. What kinds of things give status to people in your country? Of course, remember to give a full answer. You don't just answer. You don't just tell the examiner, okay, the thing that will give status to people, but you give reasons and example in order to enrich your responses, to give an extended piece of response, right? Okay, have a look at this question, the role of advertising, right? Do you think advertising influences what people buy? right? Again, you don't just answer yes or no. That's too short, not enough. That's insufficient. And yeah, again, this type of question can be easy because you know how to structure the answer, right? Uh, you know how to apply the area framework, right? You give a direct answer first, and then you give a reason, and then you give an example. So let's just do the speaking activity now. And again, I would like you to work in pairs. Maybe for the time, I don't think I will have enough time to show you the video, the sample candidate performance, but I will instead I will give you I would prefer to give you time to practice with your peer how to answer these questions. So what I'm asking you to do is to work with your peer again. Sorry. Yes. Work with your peer again. And then, like what you did in the previous speaking practice, one of you will be the examiner and the other person would be the candidate. The examiner, well, you would take turns to be examiners and students, and the examiner will ask these questions to the candidate, and the candidate has to respond immediately, right? So I will leave like maybe 4 minutes in order for you to practice answering these questions, and more importantly to have a taste of how you are going to answer these analytical questions in the real IELTS exam. Okay, so over to you. All right. Okay, because of the time limit, I don't think we'll have enough time for further speaking practices. And but I do hope that the previous the previous rounds of speaking practices, in the workshop can help you get a taste of how it would be like in the real IELTS speaking test, right? In particular, I hope that during the speaking practices, you have applied the area framework that I've introduced to you by giving reasons and examples to support your answer, right? Well, for the time being, actually, I would like to cover the other domains of the assessment criteria, not just fluency and coherence. Okay, let me begin by talking about the second assessment criterion, that is lexical resource. Here, lexical resource means your use of vocabulary. The fancier the vocabulary, the higher the score. Is that true? Yes. Yes. Oh, have a look at this. How would you answer this question? What do you like doing in your spare time? Like doing, let's say, for example, playing computer games, like reading, like what you said, reading, right? Okay. If someone tell you about this, okay, if someone says this to you, I take satisfaction, blah, 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 due to the reason that I can attain, blah, blah, blah. Do you think this is kind of like natural use of English? No, yes. Obviously, the answer is not. You don't even understand what he is talking about, actually, right? I mean, this kind of style would be more suitable for written English, but even for your writing paper, the examiner the examiners do not expect you to write in such difficult. In a style that's too difficult for readers to read, right? Have a look at this response again. What do you usually read? I derive pleasure from taking entrance into state-of-the-art virtual technology society, blah, 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 blah. But actually, you don't know what he's talking about. So, my question is it true that the fancier the vocabulary, the higher the score? I wouldn't say this is always the case, right? Well, of course, we have to vary our use of vocabulary because one of the jobs that that the examiners are looking for is to see how much vocabulary you know, right? So the question now would be the examiner will ask themselves how accurate is the use of vocabulary, whether the candidate has used a wide range of vocabulary, and also one more thing, appropriacy, whether the use of or the choice of vocabulary can enable listeners to understand very easily, right? So it is not advisable for candidates to speak like this, right? This is a wrong example, right? Make sure what you have said can be easily understood by the examiners while you are showing a wide range of vocabulary to your examiners. So I think we all may encounter this situation. That is, sometimes we don't know how to express ourselves. Like what you said. Sometimes we lack sufficient vocabulary. Then, under this situation, what can we do? There is one skill that we can apply. That is paraphrasing. So, well, if you have attended my previous writing workshops, actually, the way that I explained the term paraphrasing would be something like try to change the words in the task prompt. Okay, don't use the words they are already used in the task prompt, right? But here in this context, IELTS speaking, paraphrasing means you still try to explain what you mean to the examiner, even though you don't have the exact word to use. So I'm going to introduce to you some compensatory strategies, right? Compensatory strategies. So we can use a synonym or an all-purpose word. What do we mean by an all-purpose word? That is word like works like stuff and think. Here, if you look, well, these are all-purpose words because because the meaning is not very clear, even though you have used the word stuff and thing. So these are, well, the meaning of these words are more general. So we call them all-purpose words. I will show you how we can use these all-purpose words in a minute. But let me talk about the other two strategies. There is one strategy that you can use. Well, you use another word that is close to the meaning of the target word that you couldn't think of. Say, for example, if you cannot think of, workbench, right? You use the word table instead. So we call this strategy approximation, right? We know that a table is not exactly the same as a workbench, but because we don't know the workbench, an alternative way to express our meanings to the examiner would be to use the word table, and this is an approximation strategy. Or if I don't want to use the word, if I don't want to use the approximation strategy, we can use we can describe what we mean in greater detail. So here you can find an example of how we can use the all-purpose word thing, right? a thing that you use to open doors with. Well, we mean the key, right? We use the key. Well, but if you don't know the word key, you can describe it by saying something like a thing that you use to open doors with. And similarly, if you don't know how to express your feelings, you can say something like, it's a mix of disappointment and expectation for the future. Well, the key point here is to describe your feeling using more words. If you don't have the exact wording that you can use, then you use more words to describe what you mean. And this strategy is called circumlocution, right? Or one more strategy that we can use is to give an example, right? To give an example to illustrate what we mean. So these are the strategies that we can use to paraphrase what we mean if we can't think of the exact word to use. Okay, apart from lexical resource, which means the use of vocabulary, you will be assessed on grammatical range and accuracy. That is, well, basically your grammar, right? Again, to score well on this domain, your spoken English must be 100% accurate. Is that right? Do you have to be grammatically correct all the time? No. No, I can assure you that you don't have to be. Even for me, when I deliver my workshops, actually, you may notice that I make some grammatical mistakes in my spoken English. So, even for native speakers, they also make some grammatical mistakes in their spoken English, like the missing S, right? Actually, I can assure you that it's natural to make mistakes. Don't worry. Even for even for a candidate who would like to get a band 7, his English can contain some grammatical mistakes. But the prerequisite is that the grammatical mistakes shouldn't affect the clarity of your meaning. So it's fine to have. Some people would say, "Oh, your spoken English must be accurate all the times." And I would say, try to be accurate. Try to produce grammatically correct English. But if you have made a mistake in the speaking exam, don't worry. You can do self-correction, right? You can self-correct your utterance by saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I mean blah blah blah." But of course, if the mistake is very trivial, very small, that doesn't block communication. Like the example here, he likes history, right? If you say something he likes history, blah 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 blah. Sometimes if you think the mistake doesn't block communication and your meaning can still be made clear to your examiner, it will be better to just let go, right? Let go, just ignore them, okay, and then continue. The reason behind is very simple. If you stop all the time to correct your spoken English, that will give your examiner the feeling that your spoken English is not very fluent. Because of the fact that you have to stop all the time to correct your mistakes. That's why you have to strive a balance between accuracy and fluency, right? Accuracy and fluency. The same as the speaking test, as the writing test, you'll be assessed on whether you can use a range of simple and complex sentence structures. So on the right of the slide, actually, this is a list provided by the British Council. So this is just for your reference, meaning that you'll be good to to be familiar with these sentence structures or grammatical items, and make sure you can apply them correctly in your spoken English. All right. So the key point here is if you make a mistake, don't panic. Okay. You can correct yourself or you can just move ahead. Just go on. I've attached some samples of grammatical mistakes made by secondary school leavers who took the Hong Kong HKDSE, the Hong Kong Diploma of Secondary Education exam. So it's actually an university entrance exam, right? And in the university university entrance exam in Hong Kong, there is a speaking paper. And from the examiner's report, these are the mistakes that Hong Kong students or the candidates who took the HKDSE exam actually made. And this is just for your reference. And sometimes we made grammatical mistakes because of the influence of our mother tongue, that is Chinese, right? Like phrases like there have many people. There have many people, and this is clearly an influence of Chinese, because in Chinese we say this, but in English we say there are many people, right? There are many people, and some phrases are clearly influenced by Chinese, like different foreign country people. I very enjoy it. There are problems with this is not the way different or foreign country people is not the way it's not a natural expression in English, and I very enjoy it. There is a problem with word order, right? I enjoy it very much. Okay, just a note on tenses. Sometimes in the long term, you will be told to describe something in the past, right? So just a reminder on tenses. So if you are told to talk about the past, of course, it will be, well, of course, you should use the past tense, right? And the examiners will see whether you can use tenses flexibly when you are talking about situations in the past and those in the present, right? If you encounter, if you come across questions that are related to some general phenomena, like the questions in the analytical discussion session, we use timeless present. Here, timeless present simply means present tense, right? But we use timeless present because we are talking about general situations. We are discussing phenomena or situations that are still happening or that are still relevant to this moment, right? If we have to predict what will happen in the future, of course we use modal verbs like will become, blah blah blah, right? This is just a quick reminder on tenses, right? Make sure you can use tenses flexibly depending on the types of questions being asked. Whether you are asked to recount something, whether you're asked to talk about some present phenomena. So finally, I'll spend more time on this pronunciation because because this I think in Hong Kong or in China, actually pronunciation hasn't received much attention. But it takes time to practice pronunciation or to enhance our pronunciation skills because it involves 6 domains, right? So these are some words that again, these words are taken from the HKDSE, the local university entrance exam, and these are commented by examiners as frequently mispronounced words, right? And in particular, make sure your articulation during the speaking exam is clear. And some of you may ask the question, does it matter to have an accent? Well, we we all speak with an accent. It is inevitable, right? We can't avoid that. We all speak with an accent. So the question that is relevant to the IELTS exam should be, how can we speak with an accent without affecting the clarity of our meaning? We need to make sure that our spoken English is intelligible, right? So this is a question of intelligibility, right? We need to make sure that the examiner can easily understand what we are talking about. And to do this, it would be good to think about the way or to reflect on the way we pronounce individual sounds, right? One common mistake would be we have to do with consonant clusters. If you compare this, say for example this, some people will say proposal, but here if you compare this proposal and proposal, the R sound in PROR, the R sound is missing. This is what I mean by some missing sounds in consonant clusters, right? And another common mistake would be, say, for example, place, PLACE, place. If you miss the sound L, right, it would be PACE, pace, pace and place. So two different words with two different meanings. Well, because if you can't articulate very clearly, this can affect the clarity of your speech, and you can be misunderstood by the examiner, right? So place and pace. This is an example showing you how pronunciation is important because because if you miss a sound within a word, this can affect the meaning. So make sure you pronounce word endings clearly, right? As celebrated, right? Especially for verbs, for past tense verbs, right? Okay, I still have a few more minutes, so maybe I will go through some reminders very quickly. Okay. So what do I mean by word stress here? Sometimes when we pronounce a word, we need to be very careful with the stress that we put within the word. You know, for a lot of words in English, there can be many syllables, right? Syllables. Which syllable to stress is a question that we need to think about because this can affect the clarity of meaning. For example, some words like RECORD can be pronounced as record or record. Words like INCREASE can be pronounced as increase or increase, depending on the word classes or what we call part of speech. So maybe during your practice, you can pay attention to word stress as well. We also have sentence stress. Can you imagine that a sentence like "I love apple pie" can have 4 meanings? 4 meanings in total, depending on how you say this, right? If you say, for example, if you say "I love apple pie," right? I'm not talking about someone else. Okay, I'm talking about it's me who love apple pie, right? If you say I love apple pie, right? I mean I don't I don't like blueberry pie or cherry pie. I only love apple pie, right? So depending on which word to stress in your sentence, you are conveying different meanings, even though the words in the same sentence, in the sentence are the same, right? I love apple pie can have 4 meanings actually, or for this sentence, sorry, I said she might consider a new car. Okay, the same sentence could have 7 meanings. Can you imagine that the same sentence could have 7 meanings, depending on which word you have stressed? So intonation. What do we mean by intonation, right? We have different tones. Sometimes we use a rising tone, but sometimes we use a falling tone, right? The tone can convey different meanings. Like, for example, you are going to school today, or you're going to school today. One is the rising tone and the other one is a falling tone, right? They can be used for asking a question or making a statement respectively. So in your IELTS test, try to avoid a monotone delivery, right? And just a reminder, when you are listing items in a sentence, right? The way we read the sentence would be something like this. The IELTS speaking test consists of 3 sessions, including introduction and general questions, long term, and analytical discussion. You can see the last item here, analytical discussion. I'm listing 3 items here, and the last one is in a falling tone, while the previous 2 items are in the rising tone, right? So this is the way we apply the concept of intonation when we are listing items in our spoken English. So just a reminder on the use of questions. When you are asking a WH question, like, what's your name? Where are you from? Why did you choose this university? How long will you study here? Make sure you are using the right tone. That is the falling tone. This is actually a common mistake for Chinese learners of English, because Chinese learners of English tend to use a rising tone for all the questions, but in fact, that is wrong. Okay, for yes/no questions like, have you studied here before? Do you like the teacher? Will you come back tomorrow? We use the rising tone, right? So make sure you know which tone to use for different types of questions. And finally, I think I've mentioned this at the beginning of the workshop. We do have to pause, right? But the thing is, we don't pause for a long time. It is important to pause in between. Between sentences, because we need to give the examiner or the listener time to digest what we said, right? To do this, we can divide a sentence into different chunks. CHUNKS, chunks. Okay, chunking, right? With an example is given here. We don't say things like this. Does it really matter whether people speak with an accent as long as they can be easily understood? Many people now believe that blah, 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 blah. That can be very overwhelming to your listener, right? So we have to speak like this. Does it really matter whether people speak with an accent as long as they can be easily understood? We give pauses in between. Okay. Let me summarize what you have covered in the workshop. I think a good post-workshop activity would be for you to watch these videos. If you click on this link, you can watch the videos, and this is a way to consolidate what we have covered. There are 4 videos prepared by the British Council in order to explain the assessment criteria in greater detail. So I hope that in today's workshop, you have identified some key areas of competency that will help you get a good score in IELTS speaking, and also with the focus on fluency and cohesion, you are able to produce a sustained answer using reasons and examples. What I would suggest you doing would be to book a consultation at our university, and while during the consultation, you can discuss with your student consultant what you would like to do to improve your speaking performance, or you can have a mock practice. And also, you can watch some sample videos showing different test samples. The sample that I played during the workshop is actually taken from this website, right? So you can find a wider range of performances, like well, not just band 7 to band 9, but also some lower band performances. So it would be good to watch these test samples and the examiner comments, so that you can be familiarized with the expectations of the exam. So this is a self-assessment checklist that you can use to reflect on your performance. So just some kind of promotion. I'll be delivering another workshop next Tuesday, and it will be the last IELTS workshop during this IELTS month. Okay, thank you so much for attending my workshop. I do hope you could get well prepared for your IELTS speaking exam, and I hope you can get a good score. Okay, I will pass the time to Jamie now, who will do the workshop evaluation.